Today we're going to talk about idealism and the reality of human nature. I'm trying to do some work here, and this cat has put herself on my lap. Are you a computer programmer, Spickle?
For the track here, it was a really simplistic song in that sense. Oh, the sub bass is actually not.
What's up, awesome people? I'm Delaet, and today's video is about something that's probably a little controversial in this field of self-help. But I want to talk about it real quick. It won't be long. It's just a concept I've been working on in my own life. Today we're going to talk about idealism and the reality of human nature. So I've been getting back out in the field, dating, putting my lot out there, and having a bunch of crazy experiences and meeting a bunch of new people, making new friends. It's great. But I've been doing this for so long that there's something missing from how I used to go out and my old views on the world. And I dismissed it for quite some time. Like in the last few months, I was just looking back and be like, oh, well, back then I was really try hard and I didn't know what I was doing. And so there was a bunch of miscalibrated communication out there, and now I'm much better at it, so I don't have the same issues that I used to have. But I was thinking today, I was watching, I forget what it was, probably some YouTube thing. But back in the day, when I was first learning all this stuff, I read a lot of like manipulation things, like cult books and like Robert Greene stuff, all of his, in-depth understandings of human nature, manipulation and seduction. And I had a mindset back then that was probably closer to the reality that I was experiencing, which is that everybody does everything in their own self-interest. Like philosophically, I believed that everyone was going to serve themselves for their own emotional gain, no matter what. I've never believed in blind loyalty. I've never believed in blind fidelity. I haven't seen any good evidence of it over the years. And I have always strived to be a good person and not take advantage of people, and look out for their best interests and the best that I could see them. But I think that good people, bad people, we're all just people, and we all kind of act in our own self-interest, and we all sort of play the games from our own trauma understanding and from our own experiences and the way that we've painted the world's reference-wise. And I think over the years, like I said, 13, 14 years into this thing, I got really idealistic. Like in the last few months, I've been really like kind of let go of everything and come through the other side, and there never has to be a nefarious bone in your body, and you don't ever have to have ill will towards anyone, and it's all like this, right? And I think that's true. I think the older, maybe not, it's not age, it's maturity. It's like the wiser you get, the less you have to contrast with other people to have an identity. But I think what I was missing over the last couple of months has been everybody's going to approach life the way that they're at, or from where they're at, from their own vantage point. And you can't idealize the reality of the world, right? You can't say that she's not going to be self-destructive when she's showing all the signs that she's being self-destructive. You can't say that he's not going to resort to a display of power in order to manipulate, because he shows all the signs of doing that. People will do all sorts of things in order to get control back, to protect their egos, to keep what they think is theirs. And they're uncharacteristic of a sort of civilized or mature society, but that's what humans are. Human nature has this almost self-destructive bent, which is kind of a biased thing to say, especially in the self-help industry. Everybody expects us as coaches to be like happy-go-lucky and everything's great, and you just fucking shut the fuck up and live in your vortex and manifest all your excellence. And like, the flip side of all that stuff is you manifest your negative too. Like, if you're going to take the responsibility and believe that whatever you have in life is something that you have architected or created with your thoughts or your emotions, or what you've been projecting out in the universe, or how you've been projecting out into social space, then you have to take responsibility for the fact that where you're not at in your life is also your fault. Where you're not at in your life is also your design. I got a buddy, he works at this pizza spot. He's been doing this for years. And he doesn't make a lot of money. And he's like, okay with the fact that he's broke all the time. Like, he just sort of resigned himself to this, right? He has plenty of other skills. He could reach out and start a new business, or, rely on some of the stuff that he's learned and, what he went to school for or whatever, but he won't. Like, he just kind of likes the repetition or whatever. And whenever he starts to kind of whine about money, it's not actually very often, but when he does, I just kind of remind him, it's like, look, you could be out of the situation if you wanted to. There's all these opportunities here, but you're not, because you don't. And that's okay. Like, if you're happy where you're at, then you're happy where you're at. I'm not here to judge, like, you work wherever the fuck you want to work, but I am here to judge that your end results are mostly up to you. And I think the map for me, this isn't a very coherent thought, but I think the map for me is like, people will stay in poverty, or they'll stay in, mediocre state of living. They don't want to push to the next level, because that next level is also contains failure as well as success. And so they convince themselves that their current level is fine. And we all do this, I think, in various different areas of our life. I think for me, it's very difficult to focus on more than like 2 or 3 areas at a time. Like, if I'm working on fitness, and relationships, I can't really work on like spiritual development at the same time unless I integrate them in practice, right? So I think we all think this way, and we kind of push things off to the external and say, okay, well, I can't move forward here because this external thing is keeping me from doing that. And those of us who don't have like tribal expectations, like we don't have kids to take care of, and we don't have a house to pay for, and like all these crazy responsibilities that you kind of take on as you get older. Those of us who don't have those things have virtually nothing to tie us down, like, externally. I'm not saying that if you have kids, then like you should just do whatever the fuck you want and shine them off. We've already seen what that's done in the last few generations to the families and the family structural expectations of taking care of each other for a long time. Like, that should, like, doesn't exist anymore. It's actually rarer to have a strong family structure than it is to not. But I think, like, if you're not willing to step, like I said, okay, this is not being coherent, but it makes sense in my brain. If you're not willing to step out and push to the next level, and you're okay to sit with where you're at, that's okay, I guess. If you're happy where you're at, I'm not here to judge your place in life and socially or anything, but that's your doing. And there are a lot of people who, like in the era of relationships or in money, they'll look at their law of attraction, kind of let everything go and your awesomeness will come to you. That idea, they'll look at it as an excuse to not bring clarity to their focus. It's like a lot of times, and for the argument for the David Hawkins stuff, a lot of times when you have a goal and you're focused on it and you have a very clear understanding of what you want, your understanding is broken. And then so you manifest things that don't quite meet those things, because it's like you don't really get it because you haven't been there. Which is why my strategy, like I was talking about 3 or 4 videos ago, is to just push just out of the comfort zone to grow and become the kind of person who can handle that area, and then go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you're content to just sit around and be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna be cool, and then the universe will give me whatever gifts that it gives me. That's great, but it's very reactionary. If you're happy with that, that's fine. But for me, I'd like to push further. I'd like to move to another level. And coming back to what I was started with this with, and I guess I just had to talk myself through it. There's a certain idealism that I have now because I've reached a certain level of mastery with dating communication that doesn't let me fuck with the drama. Doesn't let me get down into the dirt. Doesn't let me meet people where they're at if they're not at a certain level of communication, right? Like I just kind of check out and don't engage in, like I don't really get set off by much. I don't get like thrown off kilter, and so I don't like engage in the drama the way I used to, because I don't have anything to prove anymore. But I think what I lost when I made that shift over the last few years, I think what I lost was the ability to truly and authentically engage with someone who is operating mostly from trauma, who speaks the language of power games and back and forth, like who is addicted to the emotional highs and lows of relationships. I kind of put my finger on it yesterday. I have this disconnect with people who like live life in like in the fringes and the shadows of social communication, because I just kind of don't fuck with them anymore. And I thought, on surface level, that growing to that point was like a goal. Like it's something I should be happy that I've achieved. I just don't get a lot of drama. A lot of people don't hate me. I don't really have a issue with most people. I accept most things. I don't judge a lot of people. But now that I'm here, and I've repeatedly just banged my head against this for the last few months, I realize that I'm disconnected from the people who are operating from trauma. Not that I don't operate from trauma. I'm not saying that I'm like better than anybody, but I've chosen not to focus on kind of grinding through the communication processes and relationships, and I just sort of like let things go that are dumb. Like I don't really vibe with that. I just keep moving because there's a lot of variety in the world. But there was something to the way that I interacted back then that was just mired in, like my philosophies of how everybody's going to be in their self-interest and everything, I was mired in this real interplay of two humans working out their issues, their insecurities, their traumas with each other. And sometimes it was conflicting, and sometimes it was like a glorious teaming up against demons. Like it would unite two people, romantic partners or social groups. Like it would reunite people to just be facing the same enemy. And that's something I don't do much anymore. And so I realized that avoiding the bullshit, avoiding the drama, staying out of the arena, staying off the front lines of the battlefield. Whether it's fear-based or it's just like, I'm tired, I don't want to deal with that shit anymore. I know what that looks like. I've already been through it. It's still cowardice. Because if I was going to get really, really good at social communication and leading people for positive change in the world, I have to calibrate to all people. I can't just like write a bunch of them off because they don't speak my language. And avoiding that actually limits my capacity and skill set to communicate. One of my biggest, one of my favorite authors on communication, his name is Marshall Rosenberg. He wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication. And he goes into, inner city schools and teaches people how to do conflict de-escalation and how to set boundaries, get your point across without inciting violence. And it's always really fascinated me to see a practitioner write a manual. Like one of my favorite authors of all time, like Stephen Pressfield, but Robert Greene specifically, what I'm talking about here. One of my favorite authors of all time, Robert Greene, they're both really, really good at breaking down the human emotional system and just laying out like strategies and plans. But Robert Greene's kind of like an historian. He like studies people from lots and lots and lots of anecdotal data. And like Rosenberg is a practitioner. He's like in the trenches. Came up with his theories and his feelings on what works and what doesn't by actually employing them with real people in real situations. And that's kind of how we did it when we were first starting in the pickup world. It's like we would go out, and I still do, date, and try different things and try on different modes of communication and try different power games, whatever. And we found systems that worked for us, and we were able to teach and break down those systems to people, to make a living. And if you're going to stay out of that interplay, then you're not pushing towards mastery anymore. That's kind of what I've been realizing the last day or so. So I know this video is probably not all that informative, but it's something that's real for me right now. I'm realizing that like avoiding the drama, so to speak, and not stepping into the shadow, so as it were, is actually avoiding the things that, to truly master this, you have to get good at. Like, in a lot of the ways to get good at it is just, A, having good mentors, but B, just slam your face against it for a while. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today. This is what, the 11th or something, 12th? Yeah. Tomorrow I'll come back with some more structured content, but today's, this is kind of an introspective day for me, so I was going to make a little introspective video. Hopefully you guys got some value out of that. In the spirit of the daily challenge, I would say look at what you're avoiding in romantic or social relationships. And look very closely for the thing that your inner consciousness says, oh yeah, I'm above that. I don't need to deal with that anymore. I've been through that enough times. I've seen that before. I understand it. I don't need to deal with that. And just kind of note that down. I'm not saying we have to do anything about that just yet, but I think for me, it was really eye-opening to kind of look over how I was interacting socially and ask, okay, well, is it really better now than it was? Am I more effective than I was? And the answer is yes, obviously, unequivocally, for most measures of relationships. But the part I'm missing, the edgy part, the part that can truly connect with somebody who's like in a fucked up space, is because I'm not terribly fucked up. Like, I'm not engaging with that stuff at all. And I think for me, it's a detriment because whatever I could still be fucked up about, I'm avoiding. I'm not facing head on. I'm not like playing with the shadow in order to subdue it. And so I need to seek those things out and start playing with that. So we'll see what happens. But your homework is to figure out what you're avoiding, what you feel like you're totally over and you don't need to deal with anymore. And explore maybe if you had strategies for dealing with it, would it be an issue? Anyway, you want to talk about shit about my ranting about today, feel free to leave that in the comments below. Subscribe. I got some more shit coming out. And a little button right there. And yesterday's video is right there. Playlist is right there. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I do this every damn day. Tomorrow will be more structured. But till then, stay awesome.